We're two sisters who believe that the purpose of life is to enjoy, create, and have fun. We believe that as humans, we can have anything we want, and things are always working out for us. Experience has taught us that the path to getting everything we want begins with ease. If you believe in miracles and happily ever after, or even if you just want to, then this is the podcast for you. Hi there, I'm your host, Kayla Rain, and welcome back to Attract It with Ease. It's just me again this week. Hopefully, Adria will be able to join us soon. As I've mentioned on the last couple of episodes, she just started a new career and she's actually traveling all over the US. And so it's hard to tie her down right now and find time to record together. But I know we've missed a couple of weeks and I wanted to make sure that we did continue to release episodes for you, our listeners. I know we have quite a few of you out there that are anxiously awaiting new episodes. So once again, here I am without Adria, and I'm looking forward to this week's episode. So let me start with gratitude. I am so grateful this week for the ability to learn new skills. If you don't already know this about me, I am one of those people that just loves to teach myself new things. I'm constantly figuring out how to do this, how to do that. I taught myself extreme couponing. I taught myself to do book folding. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It's super cool. Anytime I see something super neat that someone else is doing and I go, I don't know how to do that, it makes me want to teach myself how to do it. And when I say teach myself, obviously I'm using resources, usually the internet, YouTube, things like that. But I'm so grateful for the ability to learn new skills and the resources out there. And the reason this is at top of mind this week is that I have not been able to find a wedding bouquet that I'm in love with. And because we're eloping, I don't want to do fresh flowers, but I don't love silk flowers. I think oftentimes they look super fake. And so I have been looking into sola flowers, which are sola wood. They are made out of the bark of a tree, and they can be dyed and painted, and they look like real flowers, but they last forever. So long story short, I've been looking for a sola wood flower bouquet, and I have not been able to find exactly what I'm looking for. So I decided I'm going to make my own. So I'm learning to dye flowers, putting together my own wedding bouquet. And I'm so, so grateful for the resources that are out there and the suppliers that are available for me to pick up the things that I need to make my bouquet and to learn how to paint and dye the flowers and make them look good. So fingers crossed it turns out, but I'm super grateful for that ability and that new skill this week. I am also so incredibly grateful for electricity. I have been off the last 2 days at work and the power went out yesterday. It is 103 degrees here right now, and it is so hot. And our little window air conditioner unit is the perfect size for our tiny home, and it works overtime to keep our house cooled. And when the power went out the other day, I realized my phone was on 14%. It was nearly going to die. I suddenly had no air conditioning in the hot heat. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And thankfully, the power came back on momentarily after it went off. It was literally out maybe a minute. And I was so grateful for that. And it's funny how we take things for granted until we lose them. But man, I am so grateful for electricity right now and the ability to keep our house cool and charge my phone and be able to use appliances and television and all of those things. So I'm so grateful for electricity. I know there are people in the world that don't have it, and I momentarily was without it and about died. So I wanted to express my gratitude for that this week. I also want to express my gratitude for my loving fiance, Dan. I talk about him a lot on the podcast. Often I make fun of him, and I do feel bad about that. But I want to share personal experiences, and I don't say it enough, but I really, really appreciate him and his presence in my life. And he is so wonderful at making me feel loved. He comes up with new ways all the time to take care of me and do nice things for me. The other day I came home and there was a sweet post-it note stuck on the window in the bathroom, letting me know that he was thinking of me. And I sure appreciate him. And I don't say it enough. So I wanted to say that this week, that I am so grateful for my fiance, Dan, and I can't wait to marry him. So, this week's episode, I want to talk a little bit about what it's like to actually manifest. And what I mean by that is, we talk a lot about how to manifest something, and we talk a lot about things that we have manifested, especially me, things I've experienced, miracles that have fallen out of the sky, things that have fallen in my lap, wonderful things that have come about for me. I always say things are working out, always working out for me. Things are always working out for me. But we don't really talk about that in between stage of what is it like to be manifesting? What does it mean to be manifesting? How long does it take? What is manifesting? And so we talk about ways to help manifest, ways to help attract. That's what this whole podcast is about. But when you're working on something big, it takes time. And so I wanted today to just get into a conversation about the difference between creating versus wishing. Because I think there's a perception out there that manifesting is just like having a dream, and then that dream just suddenly happens for you. And occasionally, yes, that does happen, but usually the bigger things have to be helped. And we've talked about this on prior episodes. We had a whole episode talking about doing everything you can from where you are with what you have. We've talked about helping the process along, and how, yes, things can fall out of the sky for us, things can come together for us, but we can't just sit on the couch waiting and wishing for something to happen and expecting that the doorbell is going to ring and all of our dreams will come true. We have to be involved in the process. And we've talked about taking inspired action. Not just forcing things along, not trying to force an outcome, not trying to make something happen, but waiting for the universe to help us and inspire us. And then when we feel that inspiration, to act on it and to take the steps to make it come about. So I wanted to talk about that in a way that can help people that are trying to manifest something right now understand what the day-to-day life is like in manifestation, because we talk about gratitude, we talk about meditating, we talk about spending time to journal and write down what you're thankful for, and to focus on feeling good, and it's all feel good stuff that we're talking about. And yes, we want to do all of those things, but we can't just spend our whole life just sitting around thinking about how grateful we are and never accomplishing anything. We have a life to live. So I want to get into that a little bit. And to start out, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I did or worked on when I was trying to manifest transitioning to tiny house living. And then I want to move that conversation into some of the things that I'm doing now to try and manifest probably what's the biggest thing on my wish list at the moment. And that's my next house, my next property that I've talked about quite a bit on the podcast. So the first one is something I've already manifested. The other is something I'm working to manifest. And I want to kind of walk through that a little bit, help our listeners understand the process of what it's like manifesting from day to day, especially when you're working on these bigger things. So when Dan and I met, very quickly, we decided that we both wanted to transition to tiny house living. And we have a number of reasons that we wanted to do it. Number one was to save money. Number two was to be able to own something and not have a mortgage and not have a lot of debt. But we also had the desire to be able to take life on the road if we wanted. Dan is a professional photographer. And at the time, we were doing quite a bit of product photography for a bunch of different brands. And we thought, you know what, we could just like live in a van and travel and take pictures and see the countryside, see the country, see the world. And that was kind of a dream of ours. And that was part of what started our discussion about tiny house life. However, it wasn't just about living in a mobile tiny home. As we started looking into the tiny house lifestyle, a lot of people that live in tiny houses don't actually travel. They just take on tiny house living for a number of reasons. It could be that they want to decrease their carbon footprint. It could be that they want to live debt free. It could be that they want to be able to work part-time and still be able to afford to live. Or it could be that they just really don't want to live a materialistic life. They want to focus more on experiences versus things. There's so many different reasons that people go tiny. And those of you that have listened to the podcast know that Dan and I do not have a life on the road. We do live in a tiny house on wheels. We live in an army truck that has a tiny house built on the back, but we do not take it on the road. It is parked. It is in a semi-permanent location, and we are enjoying the tiny house lifestyle. So essentially, when we decided we wanted to transition to tiny, we were living in a house that we were renting, and we paid a lot for rent and a lot for our utilities. Our place was about 2,500 square feet. And we just realized we just had so much stuff that we never used. We had a bathroom that almost never got used. We had a guest bedroom that almost never got used. We had furniture that almost never got used. We had a garage full of stuff that never got used. And we just felt like there is all of this stuff that we're hauling around when we move, when we transition, all of these things that are weighing us down that we don't need. We really just need a small space. And then when I moved to Sedona, I went from that house that was, I don't know, around 2,500 square feet to a house that was less than half the size. It was 1,100 square feet. And it still had a guest bedroom that almost never got used. It still had a guest bathroom that almost never got used. And we really realized in that transition, yes, Dan finally moved out there with me. And the two of us lived in that house together and realized, oh my gosh, this is like the perfect amount of space for us. In fact, we could go even smaller and have all of the necessities in life that we need without the weight of all of these extra possessions. And so that's where we moved a little bit more from, okay, maybe we'll live in a van and travel the US for a couple of years to maybe this is a permanent lifestyle that we would like to have. So all of that being said, once we decided that we wanted to downsize to tiny house living, it was like, okay, how do we make this happen? How do we make this transition? And like I've said on prior episodes, it's not up to us to figure out how. It's up to us to trust in the process, leave it up to the universe, ask for what we want, and then stay open to receiving. And saying open to receiving, that's the portion where we have to be a vibrational match to what we're asking for. However, going back to how I started this conversation, talking about how we can't just expect the door to ring and everything we want to be sitting on our doorstep, we have to sometimes help the process along by taking inspired action. I want to talk about some of the things that Dan and I did prior to transitioning to tiny life that helped us manifest or attract our current lifestyle. So the number one thing we started doing is when we realized we had too much stuff, we started downsizing. And what I mean is we started going through our closets and getting rid of things. We went through the garage and we donated a bunch of stuff. We had multiple garage sales. We sold things. We sold things online. We sold things to the neighbors. We gave things to the neighbors. We gave things to friends. I mentioned that I used to be an extreme couponer. I had this gigantic stockpile of laundry detergent and hand soap and shampoo and conditioner and face products and cleaning products. And we went through a phase of just giving things away and donating things. And yes, it was nice to have that, but we had so much excess that it was just, how can we downsize the things that we own before we downsize our space? And it wasn't just a one-time thing. We did it over and over and over. And every time I went through my closet within about 2 months, I realized I still have more than I need. And I'd go through my closet again. And then I would clean out the bathroom cupboards and I'd get rid of excess makeup and beauty products. And then a couple months later, I'd realize I still have more than I need and I'd go through it again. And so it was a process of eliminating the excess and starting to kind of physically prepare ourselves for living in a smaller space. Another thing that we did once we decided to go tiny is we talked about it nonstop, meaning it was a constant conversation between he and I and the people that we worked with, our friends, everybody, our family members, everyone we knew that we wanted to transition to tiny house living. And so it wasn't just a secret between he and I. It was something that we talked about, not that we just wanted, but that we were planning to make happen. And we didn't say how it was going to happen. We didn't say when it was going to happen. It was just we are going to transition to tiny house living. We are transitioning to tiny house living. And it just was a constant acknowledgement or affirmation of this is the direction that our life is moving. And so it was just that nonstop conversation. And again, it wasn't I would like to do that. Someday I want to do that. No, we talked about it as if it was happening. We were in the transition phase and we didn't know how, we didn't know when, we didn't know exactly where, but we knew this is our future. And we talked about it as if it was our future. We talked about it as if it was in progress. Next thing we did is we researched everything. We researched all of our options. We watched every YouTube video we could get our hands on. We looked at building tiny houses on a trailer. We looked at converting school buses. We thought about buying an ambulance and converting that. We definitely looked at Sprinter vans. We started researching prices of school buses and vans. We kept looking up ads. We even had a teardrop trailer at one point, and we talked about, could we live out of the trailer? Could we manage this small of a space permanently and take that on the road? We literally spent hours researching what our options could be. Well, we could do this or we could do that. And what about this? And I like that. And what do you think about this option? And it wasn't us really trying to force something. It was just opening up all the options and the possibilities of these are all different ways that we could transition to a tiny house lifestyle and how we could do it on a minimal budget. And we talked about the pros and cons. If we go on the road, well, this version's mobile, that one's not. This one's harder to park. This one has more space. This one fits a shower. This one doesn't. Where would we shower if we didn't have a shower? Literally working out all of the details. We also did not worry about how or when it was going to happen. Like I said earlier, it was all about if it was happening, meaning we didn't talk about oh my gosh, are we going to be able to do this? I don't know if we can do it. It was, no, this is happening. This is happening. And it was just, how do we want it to happen? Which option is best for us? What makes the most sense? And those of you that know our story know that our tiny house, which we have lovingly named Handsome Hank, Hank was actually owned by Dan's brother-in-law. And his brother-in-law owned Hank during this whole time we were talking about transitioning to tiny house lifestyle. And Dan's brother-in-law wasn't even really living in or using Hank. He just used to use him and live in him. He was sitting in Dan's sister's backyard for a few years, kind of just not being utilized. And once or twice we mentioned the possibility of Hank, but we didn't even think, number one, that it would be an option that the brother-in-law would sell Hank. And number two, we really didn't see it as a feasible space for us because we weren't familiar with the inside. We just thought it was probably a lot smaller than what we would be able to get by on. And so it wasn't really on our radar. But when all is said and done, there came a conversation where Dan happened to be spending one evening at the brother-in-law's house, and the two of them sat around a campfire and had a conversation. And Dan just flat out asked him, "Hey, would you ever consider selling Hank?" And he said, "Yes." Dan said, well, how much would you want for him? And the brother-in-law gave us a price and we were floored. Now, obviously, he gave us a super special family discount, but we were able to purchase Hank and we redid a lot of the interior. We changed some things out. We made it much more functional space for us than what he had it. But the majority of the house was done and built, and most of the work was done. And it made it quite easy for us to make that transition when it came time to do it. So, long story short, when we first started talking about going tiny, yes, it was just a dream. We were wishing for it to happen. But it wasn't until we really started putting time and energy into creating this dream that it actually came about. And so, yeah, that was an inspired conversation for Dan to ask about it, because I guarantee the brother in law probably wouldn't have brought it up to us and said, hey, do you want to buy Hank? But Dan found the right opportunity to ask, felt inspired to ask. And like I said, Hank wasn't even on our radar. And it turned out to be our permanent home. In a couple of months, we'll have lived in Hank for 2 years. And I just can't believe that. It's crazy and it's incredible. And I've shared stories about finding land for us to park Hank on. And, there's been so much that has transpired since we made that decision. But now I want to jump into the next thing, the next big thing we're trying to manifest. Now that we've been in our tiny house lifestyle for almost 2 years, we absolutely love it. But there are some things that we would like to change for our permanent future. One thing is we'd like a home on a permanent foundation. We love that Hank is mobile. We love that we could take our house on the road if we wanted, but we want to own our own land. We want to be able to have a flushing toilet. Right now, we have a composting toilet. We want to be able to shower in our house and not have to empty gray water or black water. Black water is when you use the bathroom, but we want the conveniences of a normal house. Right now, we don't have a dishwasher. We would love one. We don't have a washer and dryer. We go to the laundromat. We would love to have that in our house. So although we want to continue to maintain a tiny lifestyle, there are some modern day conveniences that for the long term, we would like to reintroduce into our life. And so we keep talking about buying some land and building a tiny house on it, building an A-frame. That's what we really want, is a small A-frame. And if you're not familiar with an A-frame, you should look it up. Most people think of like A-frame style cabins. We don't really want one necessarily that looks like a cabin, but we want just a smaller home that has a loft upstairs and a kitchen and living room and so forth downstairs. That's around the same size as the house we were living in Sedona, just a tiny little property. Well, there are some challenges with that. Number one, most cities, most places have regulations on the size of home that you can build. So if you know anything about tiny house living, it is quite challenging to find areas of the country that you can truly build a tiny house on. And a traditional tiny house, a lot of those are only anywhere from 200 to 400 square feet. What we are looking to build is probably closer to maybe 1,200 square feet. So small house, but not traditional tiny. But when you're thinking about a house on a permanent foundation, a 1,200 square foot house is quite small for most neighborhoods today. And so as we look for vacant land, we're running into some challenges. If it's in a pre-existing neighborhood that maybe already has city water and city power, they have regulations on the size of home you can build, and they don't want a tiny little house in a neighborhood with big giant homes. They feel like it will affect the value of the homes around them. So we've looked at larger properties. We'd love at least an acre. And then we run into problems where they're so remote, you have to dig a well. And, where we're at, the part of the country we're in, it's high desert. And so there's nothing around. There's no trees. There's no shade. There's just sagebrush. It's not very scenic. It's not very welcoming and quite expensive to try and build a property on because there's nothing there to start with. And so We're in a space where we know that's the next phase of our life. We know we want to own our own land. We know we want to be able to build a particular type of house. We know part of the reason that we want to stay tiny is we don't want a mortgage. We want to be able to pay cash. We want to be debt free. We want to be able to focus on experiences instead of things, but we still want the conveniences of a nice life. And so here's what we're working on now. This is what manifesting looks like for us today. We're not sitting around just wishing for some house and some land because we don't have any relatives that we know of that are going to call us up and say, hey, I just want to give you my property. I don't know that that's really just going to fall out of the sky for us. We know we need to take inspired action to try and start the creative juices flowing. We need to create this future for us. We need to help manifest this. And so the things that we've been doing are we have been pricing out property. We've been looking at property, physically going on site and looking at property. Even if we don't have money for the property, when we see a plot of land that we think that could potentially work, we drive out and we look at it. We would love to live in a forested area. And there are areas around where we live that are forested. A lot of them are in California. And we've said we don't really want to live in California because of the expense of the property tax, because of the expense of water. There's a lot of things about California. However, we've recently started opening our mind to, you know what? Things are always working out for us. And if we don't live in fear, if we don't focus on the things we don't want and we focus on the things that we do want, it might work out that California really is where we should be. We don't know. But funny thing is, we've gone from feeling like there's nothing in the area to realizing there are countless properties in the area if we do not close off the idea of California. Now, I'm not saying we're moving to California. I don't know yet because we haven't bought property. But we've spent several different weekends driving around, looking at properties, taking photos, getting contact information for realtors. I have specifically subscribed to multiple newsletters from realtors. I check Redfin and realtor.com, their apps multiple times a week. I'm constantly seeking out new properties that are available. And I would say today, if the perfect property fell in our lap, I'm not in a position to pay cash for property right now because I'm paying for a wedding. I'm paying for a new vintage Jeep Wrangler that I'm purchasing. Like, I have so many things I'm working on that, I don't know how I would figure it out if the property fell in my lap. But at the same time, I'm also not worried about it. I'm focused on putting the work in, doing the research, figuring out what we need, figuring out, does it need a well? Does it have access to city property? Could we build the house that we're looking at on there? Are there regulations? Is there an HOA that has restrictions? Do we have the ability to build the size of home that we want on it? Because we're building it, we know we'll probably live in Hank while the house is being built. Will they let us put Hank temporarily on the property and live out of him while we build a house? Could we keep Hank on the property after we build the house? We'd love to keep Hank. We'd love to be able to Airbnb it, let other people stay in Hank and experience a weekend of our lifestyle, that sort of thing. These are the things that we're researching. We're talking about it as if it's happening. It's not one day we'd like this and eventually we'll do that. No, like, we tell people we are actively looking for land. We are building a house. And when I say we're building a house, we've already picked out the floor plan that we want. There's a company that does A-frame kits. So it's not a manufactured home, but the materials are pre-manufactured for the structure. And we've already priced it out. We already know which one we'll be buying, what the ordering process looks like. We know all of the details on the kit, and it does not include the appliances. It does not include the cabinets. It does not include the flooring. And we've been researching those things. We've also had things fall into our lap. Dan works for a kitchen and bath company, and we know we can get the appliances that we need through them, but they also remodeled some of the business and they had some cabinets they were getting rid of. And we know we're going to need cabinets for this home we're going to be building. We had an opportunity to get some cabinets for free. We have no need for cabinets because we're living in Hank, this tiny little truck, but we knew it was a great opportunity. We do have a storage unit with some things in it. We took the cabinets, we have them in storage. We are acting as if this is happening. We're talking about it as if it is happening. We are doing everything that we can to help this process along. Now, I know that this is all going to come together for us. I feel like the year 2021 is the year we will buy our land, which is crazy because we're already halfway through the year and nothing's transitioned, nothing's changed. But that's the attitude I have about it. That's how I feel about it. And at the same time that all of this is going on, I'm still focused on my gratitude. I'm still focused on other things that I want. I still am focused on being present in the moment and not just thinking about and wishing for the future, not just dreaming about what is life going to look like. Yeah, I spend time visualizing. I think that's important. But I still focus on enjoying today. I still focus on appreciating the small things that come into my life on a daily basis, the times that I don't run out of gas when I thought I might, the times where somebody pays for my coffee ahead of me in line at Starbucks, the times when someone sends me an unexpected care package in the mail. I mean, good things are happening constantly, and I focus on being present in the present moment. I focus on trying to control my mood, control my vibration. I focus on getting rid of any thoughts of doubt, not worrying about how something's going to come about. I try and get rid of any thoughts that are negative about the future, about, oh, what if we can't afford it? What if we can't get financing? What if we can't do this? What if we can't do that? What if someone else buys the property we want? I'm not mentally or emotionally invested in a single property or a single situation. I know when the time is right, it's going to come about for me. And that is the difference between creating and not wishing. That is what manifesting something big feels like and looks like. It's doing everything you can from where you are with what you have. And it's not trying to force an outcome, not looking at a situation and saying, no, I need this one. Because there's many houses, many pieces of land that have come and gone that I could have seen us living on, properties I could have seen us living in. And I've said, oh, this is the perfect one. But you know what? It wasn't the right timing. And I don't get hung up on that. I don't stress about it. I don't try and force an outcome or force a situation. I know the right thing will happen at the right time. And I will be ready because I will have done my research. I will have saved my money. I will know what the zoning laws are. I will know what I'm getting into, and everything will fall in place. And like I said, it's talking about it as if it's happening instead of wondering if it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. In fact, I read something the other day, a quote that I just loved, and it said something to the effect of, believe in it so hard that it feels like you already have it. Believe in it so hard that it feels like you already have it. And that's where I'm at today. I know we're going to have this awesome property and this beautiful A-frame home. I know without a doubt. I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know how, but there is zero doubt in my mind that it is going to happen. I absolutely 100% believe in it. And that is what manifesting feels like. So that leads me into our action item for this week. And listeners, I know that there's things that you want, and you don't have to want the same things I do. I know tiny house living is not for everyone, and I am not trying to talk you into it by any means. But I guarantee there's something you want. Maybe there's someplace you are dying to vacation, to. Maybe there's like a Mediterranean cruise that takes 3 weeks and you don't even know how you would get the time off or how you would afford it. Maybe there's plastic surgery that you want, or maybe there's a house you want to buy, or maybe there's a vehicle you want to buy. And maybe it's not something tangible. Maybe it's you want to lose 200 pounds. Maybe it's that you want to be cancer-free or whatever the case may be. There are big things that we all want to work towards. And manifesting isn't about sitting around and wishing for it. Manifesting is about creating it. Stop wishing and start creating. So the action item this week is to think about one thing, one big thing that you are working on manifesting or want to manifest, or maybe even feels like it's too big of an ask to manifest, but zero in on what that thing is. And then make a list of all the things that you've been doing to help it along, and a separate list, side by side list of all the additional things you could be doing to help it along. Are you talking about it as if it's already in motion? Are you speaking about it as if it's a for sure thing? Are you doing the research? Are you looking into it? Are you making space for it in your life? Are you figuring out what it would cost and what would be required, and if there's restrictions, and who you're going to need and what you're going to need and how much? There's so much you could be doing. And this action item is so similar to the do everything you can from where you are with what you have action item. It's pretty much the same thing, but I want you to recognize what you've already done and compare it to what more you could be doing. And then start chipping away at the what more you could be doing. And I'll tell you what, it's so much fun. It's so much fun to start working towards your dreams. Even if you're not physically making it happen, just spending time focusing on it, thinking about it, researching it, it's like you can almost taste it. It makes it feel so much more real, and it's so much more fun. So that's our action item for this week. Make your list, start working towards it, stop wishing, start creating. And once again, I want to remind our listeners about our giveaway. If you listen to episode 1, we talk about choosing a theme word for the year. And our giveaway is for a custom theme bracelet with your theme word for the year. You can win one just by leaving us a podcast review on any platform. You can leave us a review on Audible. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can leave us a review on Podchaser, and I'm sure there's others. Leave us a review and you will be entered into our drawing. We choose one winner every week this year. And if you want to see an example of those bracelets, you can check them out at our website, attractitwithease.com. We would love to hear from you. Reach out to us, send us an email. And if you haven't already listened to the first 10 episodes, go back and download those. Listen to them. Those are our Jumpstart module. They were designed to go together to help you attract everything you want in life, to jumpstart your manifestations. And we have a free workbook that goes with those 10 episodes that you can download also off of our website, attractitwithease.com. Anyway, it was fun chatting with you guys this week. I hope you feel inspired, and I look forward to talking with you next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.